So next time you go to the pharmacy and, grab a bottle of cough syrup or maybe an allergy med or even like a specialized skin cream, ask yourself, who actually made this?
Right, yeah. Because chances are it wasn't the famous brand name printed on the glossy label.
Exactly. I mean, the brand you trust, the one with the multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns, they probably didn't mix the liquid inside. They didn't fill the bottle. In a lot of cases, they might not have even designed the original recipe.
No, not at all. It's a massive illusion, honestly. The physical reality of getting that medication into a little plastic bottle happens in a completely different, highly secretive universe.
And that is exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking a practical, behind the scenes guide to contract pharmaceuticals manufacturing, or CDMOs.
Yes, the contract development and manufacturing organizations.
Right. We're going to explore how these massive, invisible engines operate, how they balance razor thin margins with literal life or death quality controls. And really why mastering the messy operational data behind this process is, well, it's basically a corporate superpower.
It really is. And to grasp the scale of this, you have to realize that CDMOs are essentially the heavy lifters of the entire global supply chain.
Yeah.
Unlike traditional pharma companies that might, operate their own massive internal plants and sell direct to consumers, CDMOs work in the shadows. They formulate the chemistry, they scale up the manufacturing, package the goods, and navigate this incredibly dense maze of regulations.
All on behalf of global pharma companies, right?
Right. Global pharma, OTC brands, consumer wellness startups, they do it for everyone.
And this matters to you, the listener, because whether you're taking a simple daily vitamin gummy or relying on a critical prescription drug, your health resides entirely on the operational execution of these hidden giants. I mean, if they make a mistake, people get hurt.
The stakes literally couldn't be higher. And, to understand how these companies actually survive, how they make money, we first have to understand the vast spectrum of what they make.
Because no two products are treated equally on the floor.
Right, exactly.
Hmm.
The product landscape dictates the stress level of the entire factory. Like an OTC, an over-the-counter vitamin gummy, has a very different regulatory footprint than an RX, a prescription heart medication.
Sure, that makes sense.
The documentation, the precision, the audit trails required for the prescription side are intensely strict compared to the wellness side.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I'm trying to picture how a product actually gets born inside one of these massive facilities. A global brand doesn't just, email over a recipe and say, hey, hit blend.
Oh, definitely not. It's a multi-stage life cycle. It often starts in a department called PDS, which stands for Pharmaceutical Development Services.
PDS.
Yeah. Think of PDS as the Innovation and Testing Lab. This is where the formulation development actually happens. They're running small clinical batches, they're figuring out the specific chemistry, conducting high-complexity testing, and just generally working on scale-up activities.
So it's highly technical, smaller volume work, basically figuring out how to take a concept and actually make it exist in physical reality.
Yes, exactly. But once that product is perfected, validated, and approved by regulators, it shifts into commercial manufacturing.
And that's the big leagues.
That is the large-scale production phase. We're talking millions of units. Here, volume, efficiency, and profitability become the ultimate goals.
So wait, if a CDMO is essentially a highly regulated ghost kitchen,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
then PDS is like the test kitchen perfecting the recipe with the executive chefs, and commercial manufacturing is the massive dinner rush where the menu is locked in, the tickets are printing nonstop, and every single second of delay costs you money.
That analogy holds up beautifully, actually, especially when you consider the business model.
Mm,
Because a CDMO doesn't own the brand. They're just renting out their expertise and their multi-million-dollar equipment.
right.
So their entire profit margin depends purely on execution. If a traditional consumer brand has a messy, expensive manufacturing run, they might just make up for those losses with a brilliant viral marketing campaign.
Yeah, they just sell more units. But a CDMO doesn't have that luxury.
Not at all. Efficiency, quality control, scheduling, these aren't just operations for them. They're the entire business model.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm looking at the manufacturing process, and making a liquid syrup makes sense to me. You dispense the active ingredients, mix them into a giant vat of liquid, maybe heat it, hold it, and pump it into a bottle.
Right. The standard liquid manufacturing flow.
But what about something thicker, like a specialized eczema cream or an ointment? The guide notes that these are much more labor intensive. Why is that? I mean, I imagine the physics of pumping a thick paste completely changes the mechanics on the factory floor.
It changes absolutely everything. You're bringing up the chemistry of semi-solids here. A skin cream or a lotion often involves an emulsion.
And emulsion, okay.
Yeah, and an emulsion is essentially the act of forcing oil and water to mix, which fundamentally they really do not want to do.
Right, oil and water naturally separate.
Exactly. So you have to prepare an oil phase in one tank, a water phase in another tank, heat them both to very specific, precise temperatures, and then use chemical stabilizers while blending them under intense shear forces.
Under shear forces, so if the temperature is off by even a degree or the mixing speed drops?
The oil and water separate, and you've completely ruined the whole batch,
Oh, wow.
which introduces the most crucial physical concept on the floor, and that's viscosity.
The thickness.
Right, the thickness of the product. Viscosity basically dictates the heartbeat of the factory. A thick, heavy ointment behaves entirely differently than a runny allergy lotion. Viscosity changes how long the mixing takes. It changes how fast you can fill the bottles on the line.
Right, it changes the required pump pressure to move the product through those, like, miles of stainless steel pipes in the ceiling.
Exactly. You can't just run a pump at the same speed for a thin syrup and a thick cream. It would either blast liquid everywhere or completely burn out the motor of the machine.
So every machine setting has to be totally customized for that specific product's viscosity.
Custom setups for everything. And this physical reality ties directly to the ultimate metric of success in a CDMO, which is yield.
Yield. Okay, how does that work?
Well, a batch is a defined quantity of product manufactured at one time. Say a run of 50,000 bottles. Every single batch requires a flawless batch record for compliance. But the absolute enemy of a batch is scrap.
Scrap. So material that just gets lost in the process, like left in the pipe, spilled on the floor, rejected for quality.
All of the above, yeah. Your yield percentage is simple math. It's your actual output divided by your expected output. If the recipe says you should get 50,000 bottles and you only get 45,000, you have a massive problem. Because a CDMO only makes a tiny margin on the manufacturing contract, right?
Right.
So a 5% drop in yield doesn't just mean you lost a little product. It can entirely wipe out the profit margin for that entire week's work.
That is, I mean, the financial math there is incredibly unforgiving. And I imagine you can't just keep the machines running 24/7 to make up for those losses either, because these massive mixing tanks and filling lines are shared across dozens of different products for different clients.
Right, it's a shared resource.
So deciding when to make what has to be the most stressful job in the entire building.
Oh, the scheduling department is absolutely the pressure cooker of a CDMO.
Mm.
Because you're dealing with shared equipment, schedulers face overlapping constraints every single day.
What kind of constraints are we talking about?
Well, you might have tank capacity limits. You have labor shift limits, like maybe your specialized machine operators are only scheduled for the day shift. Or you might be ready to run a batch, but the raw ingredients are delayed at the port. Or you're waiting on a mandatory quality testing delay from the lab.
It's like cooking a massive batch of peanut butter cookies in your home kitchen and then needing to instantly pivot to making a perfectly sterile, allergy-free meal for someone else.
Yes.
I mean, you couldn't just wipe down the counter. You'd have to aggressively sterilize the entire kitchen before you even brought the new ingredients out. The cleanup alone would be a nightmare.
That is exactly it. And in pharmaceutical manufacturing, that intensive cleaning process is called a changeover.
A changeover.
Yeah. It is the operational downtime required to clean, reset, and completely reconfigure the equipment between different products to avoid allergens and cross-contamination. And a changeover isn't just a quick wash. It involves tearing down the pumps, swabbing the inside of the stainless steel tanks, and then actually sending those swabs to a lab to prove there are 0 parts per million of the previous drug left behind.
Wait, really? That sounds like it would take days.
It can.
So if you have a poor scheduling strategy, your factory is spending more time cleaning itself than actually making products.
And that is the trap many struggling CDMOs fall into. To survive, master schedulers rely on a strategy called campaign manufacturing.
Okay, what is that?
They strategically group similar products back to back. So if you have 5 different global clients who all happen to need variations of a clear water-based allergy liquid, you schedule them in one long, continuous campaign.
Ah, because jumping from a water-based allergy liquid to another water-based allergy liquid requires a much later cleaning process than jumping from an oil-based cream to a water-based liquid.
Precisely. Campaigning drastically reduces that intensive, deep cleaning downtime. It boosts efficiency and keeps the factory moving. You're basically playing a high-stakes game of Tetris with multi-million-dollar machinery.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. All of those spills, those complex changeovers, the scheduling delays, they all directly impact the financial health of the CDMO. This is where the messy physical reality of the factory floor meets the pristine Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, the bridge between those two worlds is the BNM, or the Bill of Materials.
The BMOM.
Right. And the BM is not just a recipe card, it is a binding financial contract. Let's say if a BM calls for 5 kilograms of a highly expensive active ingredient, 100 liters of purified water, 2 kilograms of flavoring, plus 10,000 bottles, caps, and labels.
Okay.
That exact list of materials drives what we call the standard cost.
So standard cost is what the CDMO calculates it should cost to make a single unit, factoring in the materials, labor, factory overhead, and packaging.
That's the theory. But we connect this to the bigger picture. The real world is chaotic. Actual cost almost never perfectly matches standard cost.
Right. So if we have an exact biome and we know exactly what should go in the tank, why is manufacturing variance such a huge deal for these companies?
Because things go wrong. And in modern CDMOs, a lot of which are backed by private equity firms, tracking down the root causes of these financial variances is practically a blood sport.
Wow.
Finance teams constantly dissect different types of variances. For example, let's look at a material usage variance. Imagine a forklift driver on the floor accidentally punctures a barrel of an expensive active ingredient.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the factory still has to finish the batch, so they pull a backup barrel. The BM said you should use 5 kilograms, but you actually consume 10. Your actual material cost just doubled.
And the client obviously isn't going to pay for that second barrel because it was the factory's mistake. The CDMO just eats the cost.
Completely. Then you have labor efficiency variance. Say your automated capping machine breaks down mid-batch. Instead of a machine capping 200 bottles a minute, you have to pull 10 workers off other lines to manually screw caps onto 10,000 bottles.
Ugh, that sounds awful.
An operation that should have taken an hour just took an entire 12-hour shift. Your labor hours just spiked drastically above the standard cost. You also have yield variance, which we talked about earlier with scrap.
So you've got private equity bosses breathing down your neck, demanding better margins. You might think the easiest way to improve variance is to just tell the operators, hey, work faster, skip a few cleaning steps, cut some corners. But in pharmaceutical manufacturing, doing that will get your entire operation shut down immediately.
Oh, you would lose your operating license overnight. This is the heavily regulated reality of GMP good manufacturing practices. In a GMP environment, concepts like strict documentation, absolute traceability, cleanliness, and process validation are non-negotiable laws. You cannot just work faster if working faster means missing a mandatory temperature check. If it isn't documented legally, it didn't happen.
Wait, let me ask for a vital clarification here. People use the terms QA and QC interchangeably all the time in business. But if I'm understanding this highly regulated ecosystem correctly, what is the actual difference between them? QA feels like the architects building the rulebook.
Spot on. They are entirely different functions with different mindsets. QA is quality assurance. They audit the process. They manage the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, and they handle KPAs, which are corrective and preventive actions when a process goes wrong.
So QA ensures the system itself is sound and compliant. If QA enforces the law, what does QC do?
QC, quality control, tests the physical evidence. They are the analytical scientists in the laboratory. They take a physical sample of that cough syrup off the manufacturing line, put it under a spectrometer, and test it to ensure the active ingredient concentration is exactly correct.
And that QC testing has to be passed before QA will look at all the paperwork and grant a batch release, letting the product leave the building.
Exactly.
Wow. So you have strict chemical testing, complex physics, scheduling nightmares, PE firms demanding margins. And to make it even harder, the expert guide points out another massive risk, the ticking expiry clock. Unlike making widgets, this inventory literally goes bad.
The inventory problem is a massive, silent killer of margins. From the raw materials sitting in the warehouse to the WIP, the work in process moving through the factory tanks, down to the finished goods. Almost everything has a strict shelf life.
Which means if your forecasting is poor or your scheduling causes delays, those materials expire before you can use them.
Yes. And that leads to obsolescence risk. You have to throw away millions of dollars of materials and take massive inventory write-offs.
Which completely destroys your EBITDA.
It happens more often than you'd think. When you combine millions of bottles, strict expiry dates, volatile financial variances, and complex BOMs, human brains simply cannot manage this level of complexity on a whiteboard.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the data lifeline. It seems like the highest value professionals in this industry today aren't just the chemists, they are the ones who can wield the operational data.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the tech stack that keeps these ships from sinking. How do they actually track a spilled barrel of chemicals across a massive global enterprise?
At the core, you have a massive ERP system, usually something like SAP. It tracks the material masters, the DNA of the products, the routings, and it monitors live production orders.
But staring at raw SAP data tables sounds miserable. Who is actually interpreting all of this data?
Usually it's the FP&A team, financial planning and analysis. In a modern CDMO, FP&A professionals act as operational detectives. They run capacity planning models, analyze inventory aging, and build margin analysis dashboards.
And this is where modern tools step in, right? Because relying on static Excel spreadsheets for live factory data seems incredibly risky.
Oh yeah, that's where tools like Power BI come in. Dashboards visualize the chaos of the factory floor in real time, showing exactly where equipment downtime is happening or flagging inventory that's getting dangerously close to expiry.
And if you want to go deeper, Python is basically a superpower here.
Oh, completely.
Instead of manually crunching spreadsheets, you write a Python script that automatically scans historical factory data, like pulling a data frame script, calculating your yield percentage by just dividing actual over-expected to instantly spot anomalies on the factory floor.
Yes. Python completely automates variance analysis. It can optimize campaign scheduling by running thousands of permutations in seconds.
Wow. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means the modern employee at a contract manufacturing organization isn't just an accountant or someone wearing a lab coat. To succeed, you have to be relentlessly data-driven.
You have to be.
You must be able to connect the raw, messy operational realities, the spilled ingredients, the broken pumps, to the financial spreadsheets. You have to explain the root causes of bottlenecks and communicate those insights to drive enterprise value.
Knowing that a specific batch lost money isn't enough anymore. You have to know why it lost money down to the minute and how to fix the system to prevent it tomorrow.
Right. Well, let's wrap this up. We've covered incredible ground today. We've gone from mixing complex chemical emulsions to wrestling with scheduling changeovers, tracking down financial variances, and using Python to save millions in expired inventory.
It's a massive interconnected ecosystem. Every single operational decision ripples directly down to the bottom line.
And understanding these behind-the-scenes mechanics doesn't just make you better at finance or operations. It completely changes how you view the global supply chain every single time you open your medicine cabinet.
I'll leave you with this final thought to mull over. Think about the sheer scale of campaign manufacturing we talked about earlier. If a CDMO is producing multiple competing brands of cough syrup, running them back-to-back on the exact same multi-million-dollar equipment, using incredibly similar operational processes to maximize efficiency, what really differentiates those products sitting next to each other on the pharmacy shelf beyond the label and the marketing?
Oh, wow. Something to think about next time you reach for that bottle of cough syrup or an allergy med. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the invisible systems that power your world, and we'll catch you on the next one.